Now, here's another one. Shout out to the think tank. Millions of Americans could face eviction as housing protection expires in June. More than 11 million Americans are behind in their rent, and many could be pushed from their homes when the national eviction ban expires in June. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's eviction moratorium, which has been in effect since September, will lift on June 30th. Although the policy has been far from perfect at keeping renters housed, it's reduced the normal number of eviction filings over the same time period by at least half, according to Peter Hepburn, an assistant professor of sociology at Rutgers University, Newark, and research fellow at the Eviction Lab. Experts say the number of evictions could skyrocket when the ban lifts. Around 15% of adult renters are not current on their housing payments, according to an analysis by the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. We're going to see what we've been managing to stave off this wave of evictions that is just going to crush some of these areas. The coordinator of the National Coalition for a Civil Rights Council. CDC's eviction moratorium has faced numerous legal challenges, and landlords have criticized the policy, saying that they can't afford to house people for free or shoulder the country's massive renter arrears, which could be as high as $70 billion. And housing advocates say the ban is lifting at a terrible time for both property owners and tenants, with states still scrambling to distribute the $45 billion in rental assistance allocated by Congress to address this crisis. That funding is unprecedented. Renters were given $1.5 billion during the Great Recession, according to the National Low Income Housing Coalition. So we need to let this moratorium stay in place until we spend all this money, said Mark Melton, a lawyer who has been representing tenants facing evictions pro bono in Dallas. If you bail out the renter, that means you bailed out the landlord. Heather Jordan has been approved for rental assistance in Missouri, but it could take weeks for the money to reach her landlord, who has already moved to evict her. If you got the moratorium in place, it allows you the time to get the landlord paid. Jordan, 48, who fell behind on her $1,475 rent after she lost her sales job shortly before the pandemic. Her wife is disabled and can't work. If she and her family, including her wife, 2 children, and 2 grandchildren, are evicted from their house in St. Louis, she doesn't know where they'll go. She's lived there for 9 years. Finding a landlord to rent to her with an eviction on her record will be difficult. We will be homeless, she said. Who's at risk? Eviction rates will likely be higher in some states than others. For example, nearly 1 in 4 renters are behind on their housing payments in Florida and South Carolina, compared with 6% in Maine and Kentucky, according to the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. Alicia Mazra, a senior research analyst on the housing policy team at the CBPP, whatever that means, said there were multiple reasons for those disparities. Some states already faced greater housing affordability problems before the pandemic, she said. Another likely factor would be the state's economy. For example, we know that the pandemic has caused job losses to be very concentrated in the restaurant and hospitality sector, Mazara said. Jobs most affected by the pandemic may make up a larger share of some economies than others. Across the country, Black renters are nearly 4 times as likely to be behind on their rent than white renters. The pandemic has exacerbated racial inequities, Mazara said. Households with lower incomes also report more problems paying their rent. Anyone who before the pandemic was living paycheck to paycheck is going to be vulnerable. Older Americans are yet another vulnerable group, according to one recent count. More than 100,000 people over the age of 65 said they expected to be evicted within 2 months. Almost 450,000 renters between the ages of 55 and 64 said the same. That is also from CNBC. What does that mean? Well, like I said, Black people are more vulnerable and women probably are more vulnerable. So all these negative things that we've been actually expecting, anticipating since COVID started are actually probably going to come in effect in June. We'll see how the moratorium, or not moratorium, but the ending of a lot of these unemployment payments, the extra federal unemployment payments are actually going to affect these people also, because like I said, a lot of people, a lot of women especially, have been collecting this unemployment. So it's going to exacerbate things. So all I can say is get ready for that hey big head text or the phone call out of the blue. So I can say get ready to get your coffee money ready if you are so inclined, but also be very weary of ex-girlfriends and and baby mamas and ex-wives and anything that's ex, some ex-girlfriend that you knew in college or high school, all of a sudden reaching out to you 15 years later out of the blue. Be wary. Be wary of Facebook friends, okay? This is going to get critical. So it's going to get ugly for this summer. So if it gets ugly, if it gets too ugly, which I don't think the Biden administration is going to let it get that ugly, you could see a repeat of what you saw last summer, right after George Floyd. Could see a very good repeat of that. So I don't anticipate it, but people will be on edge for a different reason. They're just coming out of the COVID, right? They're already frustrated. If they got to go on the streets and they can't work or they get dumped into the street because they don't have a home, yeah, especially for big cities, it could get ugly. So all I can say is keep your head on a swivel, be aware, and be cautious. Because I think the women will get awfully predatory about this time. Even if they're not evicted, if they're close to the edge, they will become predatory. And you don't want to be lunch, especially for you guys that are working in what they call the high value guys. Oh, if you're high value guys, you guys are going to have a target on your back. I feel for y'all. You guys won't be able to go anywhere without being hounded. So we'll feel sorry for y'all. So like I said, get prepared. Even the average guy making $30,000 is going to be like gold during the summer, during the second half of this year. Y'all going to become like gold watch pieces because of the federal support is going to dry up. It's already drying up because the state's trying to push people back to work. So they're willing to cut you off and make you suffer so that you have to take any job because they want to get this capitalist system back on the road. Here's what it is. But anyway, cut this one off. This is going to be short and sweet. And this is BGS, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.